So when the ulama saw, for instance, that the muhaddithin were dying off, then that became their emphasis. If you look at one of our greatest intellectuals, Abu Bakr al-Baqillânî, I mean, phenomenal Iraqi scholar. He initially was a faqih in the Maliki school. When he saw that the dominant fitan of his age were in kalam, in theology, he became a mutakallim. Despite the fact that theology is, of all the sciences, the least important in terms of, I won't say the least important, what I will say the least desired. I won't say least important, because it has its deep importance, but it's the least desired. Why? Because the ulama did not like kalam. If you read the early ulama, they did not like kalam. In fact, I think the reason they called it kalam is in an almost derogatory. It's like empty talk. But when the shubha is there has to be an alim who makes his rad. And rad al-shubuhat, which is to reply, to counter-argue the doubtful matters emerging into the understanding of the Muslims, that is an obligation on the ulama. And this is an age of shubuhat. And we have so many shubuhat, and we don't have ulama replying to it because we don't have this level anymore. This is one of our deep crises in this age. And so Abu Bakr al-Baqillânî, Rahimahullâ, when he saw that the crisis at that point was kalam, he became the greatest mutakallim of his age and refuted all of the sects of his time. And he was sent by the Muslim caliph to Rome as an ambassador to Constantinople. When he entered into Constantinople, the emperor at that time, they were very arrogant. It was their tradition that they had to bow, just literally go into full ruku'ah to the emperor. And he wanted Abu Bakr al-Baqillânî to bow to him. And his Saqifa, the bishops, told him, no, the Muslims don't bow except to Allah. And so he said, well, work out some way that will force him to bow. So what they did is, in order to get into his chamber, they put a small, narrow arch. And that would force him to come in to it bowed. You see, now Abu Bakr al-Baqillânî, and this is intellect, when he came to that chamber and he saw the king's throne behind it, he turned his back and came in backwards. You see, and this upset the ruler, but what can you do? I mean, you're going to force a man to... So when he got there, the bishops greeted him, and he said, he greeted them back, and he said, how is your children and your wives? And the bishops looked at each other and they said, what are you asking about? Don't you know that we're natanazzahu an al-ahl wal-awlad? That we're exalted above having children and having wives? And he said, عجيب تتنزهون عن الأهل والأولاد وتنسبون إلى الله الأهل والولد. You consider yourselves above wives and children, and yet you attribute to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a cohort and a child? You see, فَبُهِتَ الَّذِي كَفَرْ. This is the hujjah of Ibrahim. بُهِتَ الَّذِي كَفَرْ. He was amazed. Buhita. His intellect suddenly went into, what's shut down in computer language. What happens? Crash. You see, it crashes.